All right. So, hi everyone. Thanks for coming in, hanging out again. This is another live stream from Puma Podcast, and I'm Carl Javier, CEO of Puma Podcast and host of A Better Normal. The the way that we launched season one of A Better Normal was we guested Stephanie C. Of Thinking Machines so that she could walk us through her thinking about AI because I think it's so important. And we think that AI is such an important conversation to have that we're doing a follow up here with Kevin, one of Steph's colleagues. So, Kevin, can you please introduce yourself to our audience?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Carl. Hi, everyone. I'm Kevin. I head up the machine learning and AI team at Thinking Machines. I've been working at Thinking Machines for the past 6 years now. Joined in 2018. Always worked with the AI ML team. So our group is particularly concerned with talking to clients, figuring out their problems, and scoping potential AI and analytic solutions that we can build for them to help them address those problems. So it's a lot of developing custom machine learning and AI models, but it's also leveraging things like I'm sure a lot of you have heard about like GPT and a lot of these foundation models out on the market today, and enabling enterprises to make use of those things as well. So yeah,
And I'm very curious because don't know I don't think you have a degree in AI as far as I
yeah,
checked in the background. So what is your background in and how does that influence your ability to work in the AI and machine learning space?
yeah, that's right. I have a kind of unorthodox background for people working in AI, and I don't have a comp sci degree. My undergrad and my master's is in biology. I studied biological systems, so I came from doing work in scientific research in those systems, and yeah, the domain knowledge there has nothing to do with AI, right? It's more about the skills that I was able to carry over when transferring to this field, this industry was the scientific method, asking the right questions, quantitative analysis, because obviously in natural sciences you do a lot of statistical modeling, uh, that kind of thing.
Yeah, no, kasi one,
Yeah,
right? It becomes a thing that's really really easy to get into. And the funny thing is, everybody who was like Web3, crypto, ganyan, is suddenly
yeah,
like AI, ganyan. But
yeah,
like to have legitimate ability to work in the space doesn't mean that you need to have studied specifically these things, but it demands an approach or a way of thinking. Tama ba?
yeah. I think Steph touched on this a little bit during the last episode. Then, like having the kind of growth mindset and having the adaptability, trying new things, learning new tools. Um, Especially now, I guess, with the advent of Gen AI and GPT, those kinds of AI models, it's more and more easier for non-tech people and non-coders to work with AI and interact with it and program it. I say program, but really are because of the capabilities of these AI models, you can talk to them as if you were instructing a person, right? You communicate with them in natural language, in English, and then you can get it to behave the way you want almost. So that's you know,
Yeah, I'm thinking at least in terms of personal usage of AI, like it's reaching a point where you don't need to understand how it works. Like you don't need to understand what a generative model is or what the corpus of whatever the knowledge it's drawing from is.
yeah,
In the same way that my favorite metaphor is the we don't know how a credit card works and our lives are fine. And it's almost like that, no? It's just a tool that we use now,
mm.
right?
It's much more intuitive now, and it's supposed to like help you a lot in whatever your tasks are. Although I would add to your point now, it does help to know its limitations. I think you agree with because maybe not knowing the ins and outs of how it works, like knowing the architecture and knowing the underlying code, not necessarily for everyone, but it's important for everyone to know what it can and can't do. Right? What are its limitations? For example, GPT, the one you guys use, you don't. It has the potential to hallucinate. If you guys are
Yeah.
familiar with hallucinations, it can make stuff up sometimes. So it has that tendency. So if you want to use it for research, hmm, yeah, it's good for like brainstorming and getting like first drafts out or summarizing
Yeah.
text. But if you're using it for true research, uh, things like
not
that.
not the best option. Sige,
Not the
so
best option. Yeah,
I'm sure we'll come back to this and we'll keep touching on these themes as we go. And
yeah,
I want to invite anyone who's watching, like audience, please come and ask questions. And we have our team also on social. If you want to ask questions through them, please send them through. So I'm gonna start with one of the big listener question that we got in
right.
various forms
Yeah,
was, and this is talking about the people who may not know how GPT works, but they're
yeah,
using it.
yeah.
A bunch of students have been submitting to their teachers. And I remember New York Times may ganitong storya a
Yeah.
few months ago, like this history teacher who was kind of just depressed that his students weren't writing
Oh,
essays.
yeah, yeah.
And I'm wondering how this connects with you. Obviously, this is very different from the work that you do at Thinking Machines, where
Hmm.
the product is related to the needs of the
Hmm.
client in terms of that. But this
Yeah.
is the use that people have right now.
Hmm.
What do you say to a teacher who is struggling with this?
Yeah. Okay. So I think that kind of touches a bit on what I just said, wherein you don't, if you're using it to totally generate, so you're saying here like they're using it to generate essays and then they submit it in class, right? It could be wrong, first of all, if you're using it for research. You have to you have to ask it for sources, basically. The current versions of GPT, although that's behind the, you have to get GPT Premium for that. It can actually search the internet and provide you with sources with stuff it says. So don't do it, kids. But basically, you don't want to use it and just like have it generate your essays because it could be wrong as well. I think it's totally fair to use it for brainstorming. That's one of the intended uses naman talaga of like, for example, ChatGPT. You give it a prompt, it can help seed your ideas early on, and then from there you can structure your essay as you would like. It helps you get started because sometimes when we're writing, right, the hardest thing is to get started on that first instance, and sometimes it can jumpstart that.
So at risk of trying to make this more philosophical than it needs to be, I'm starting to think of what the obsolescence is in parang in not in learning. Kasi for example dati, we used to rely on institutions to give us knowledge. Kasi yung access natin to knowledge was in the libraries, in books, in the schools. And then the internet comes along and it just says, you actually don't need all of this knowledge because it's here. Uh, it sort of like how before we used to memorize all the trivia and used to have all
Yeah,
of these facts in your head. And
yeah,
now it's totally unnecessary to hold those facts because you can pull out the phone and say,
Hmm.
who assassinated blah blah blah
Yeah.
and in what year, and we don't need to hold it in our minds anymore. Is this like the next evolution of it where dapat hindi na tayo nag-assign ng essays where we're asking students to relay knowledge anymore? Like, is
Maybe,
that yeah.
maybe not necessarily regurgitating knowledge because, like what you said, parang it's easy now to just repeat knowledge. Parang now it should be more, and it always should have been about critical thinking, testing students' new ideas, their ability to organize these thoughts and communicate it. Um, that should be the test, more so than just memorizing and stock knowledge and things like that.
Yeah. So if you're assigning an essay, you should be
Mm,
assigning an essay that pushes students to express some
yeah,
level of creativity. And it's
yeah.
not just a prompt about
Some
tell me the history
summary.
of blank.
Yeah, yeah,
Ah,
exactly,
yan.
exactly. What are your ideas? What are your?
Yeah.
Uh, it's not just
Yeah.
some summary.
And so,
Interestingly,
yeah, go
oh
ahead.
sorry, go ahead.
Go.
Oh, the essay thing just reminded me. I think there were like some different, there are different companies out there, groups that say that they have a tool or software that can detect if something has been generated by
Yes.
AI, diba, for those purposes. Those are a bit, iffy. Personally, I think they're a bit iffy, just because these large language models that use in like GPT, they're trained on massive amounts of data on the internet, right? A lot of human text. I mean, all human generated text, pretty much. So they're naturally gonna pick up. They're naturally gonna get generate stuff that sounds like what a normal human would write. So you get the flip side. You have students that write like totally normal, and then they pass it to that thing, and then it says, "Oh, what you did was created by AI." That's just because it sounds like an average human.
Kasi may false positive because of
Yeah, parang
the
ganun.
possibility of the student sounding unnatural in the way
Yeah,
that AI
yeah,
doesn't sound
yeah,
human all the time.
yeah,
I don't know eh. Kasi even before generative AI, I've been a teacher for a long time, and even before, there are these plagiarism things. You kind of drop it in, and then
yeah, yeah.
it will check. And so this is just like, is it like an? It feels like an arms
It
race
feels like, yeah, yeah,
where the AI will become more complex, and then the detection will become more complex, but
yeah.
it's never actually going to end unless we just change the way that we give exams. I don't know.
I think so. I agree with that. The way we test students, diba? Rather than, yeah, rote memorization and that kind of thing. Um,
Yeah, so if that's the case, like, and this speaks broader, like, it means that AI is going to force us to change the way that we think about education. We actually think about what is meaningful for people, like the meaningful skills for someone. What are we
yeah.
testing for? Like I don't know. Is that I guess I would ask for you guys at Thinking Machines. Is this actually something that is changing the way that you hire? Sorry, like this is a surprise
Mm.
question. I just thought of it now, but
Okay.
is
That's
this
okay.
going to change the way that you recruit, that you hire? Because
Yeah,
if you're at the
yeah,
forefront of this thing, what kind of person needs to be on your team so that,
yeah.
or what traits do they need to have so that they can be at the forefront?
Mm. Yeah, good question. And it's something we have been thinking about. I can speak for my team personally, the ML team, because some of these AI assistants can even help people who code, like us. AI can help coders who develop AI models because it makes it easier. It can help you debug, etc. Um, and I think one thing we don't want to do is punish applicants or people who use that to enhance their productivity, because that's what it's there for. It's supposed to help you work better and more efficiently. But at the same time, we want to be careful of people who lean on it too heavily, right? So if you're using AI totally to write your code, and then you don't know how to do it yourself anymore, we our exam now, we've repurposed it to kind of catch that. So there's a lot more like critical thinking and on the spot stuff. Whereas before, so people who are listening and want to apply to TM. So before, the exam would be basically we give you a data set, and then, like, you do some analysis on it. It's all behind the scenes, and you send it to us, and then yeah, later on we see if we interview you. But now there's still that, because we still want to we want to look at your code, test your tech skills, your coding skills. But there's gonna be another component that it will become obvious if you lean too hard on
Yeah, kasi
these
nga,
AI
like,
assistants.
because now, like, you can have the GPT generate the code for
Yeah,
you, right?
yeah,
And we've played around with some things where you get the already created, app, and then you kind of
yeah,
just plug it into the workflow, and it
yeah.
functions. um
Mm.
so for, I guess, as we start thinking about that kind of application, I want to think more broadly about us as individuals using AI.
Yeah.
And kasi there's no barrier, and I don't know how to
Mm.
feel about that. Because obviously it's great. Like, anyone can just literally, you can go online and you can sign into, Bing or whatever, and you're already using it,
Mm.
or you may be using apps and you're not even thinking about how much AI is already involved. But should there be like a personal hygiene or a personal
Mm.
discipline when we begin to use AI in, let's start with, in our personal lives? Is
Yeah.
there a thing that you start to put guardrails around? Eto, pwede kong gawin with
Mm.
AI. This one, I kind of want to keep this human. Yeah.
Mm. I think, yeah, good question. In the personal sense, first of all, you don't want to be including saying anything like very private, any private information. I mean, even like these, even OpenAI. who develops ChatGPT. They're very upfront with that. Parang whatever you say to ChatGPT is basically they can see it, right? Um, so our advice usually to people who are trying to adopt AI is you don't chat about anything that's very sensitive, personally identifiable information, etc. That kind of thing. There are That's like the popular version of ChatGPT, accessible to everyone. You can also build like an enterprise version, which is more secure. So that's the one. We can talk about that later, but basically that's the one a lot of the enterprises that work with us use. Because you want to be able to, syempre, limited yung workflow mo if you're not able to upload some internal company knowledge, etc. And you want to be able to do that safely, right? And that's where we come in and help these guys. But that's for later. But when it comes to the personal, I think one rule of thumb is don't just say whatever. Don't do it. Yeah.
Parang in life in general, don't post everything. And it's
Yes,
the same thing.
exactly.
Don't feed the AI
Don't feed it just
everything.
all that. Yeah, all your personal info and whatever. Yeah.
Is there other stuff that we need to be careful with? Like
Mm, I guess again, re-emphasizing what I said earlier. Na don't rely on it too hard for like hard facts and research. It can get it right a lot of the time. Hallucination rates are pretty low, especially for the latest GPTs. But you want to ask for sources, or if it gives you some facts, you want to double check it. Do your due diligence. Naman.
yeah, so hindi pa rin hindi pa rin pwedeng tamadin like ito na bahala na
Yeah.
kayo diyan.
Oh, write
And
this whole essay for me.
actually we've seen like we've been observing news sites
Hmm.
or tech sites, and then they'll just populate,
Yeah.
and that's just, and then it will
Because
be
it's just
populated
wrong.
with factually
Yeah.
incorrect things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Diba?
It's
And
some
there's reputational
lazy,
risk there.
yeah. Yeah. If they want to just keep churning out articles, sometimes then the facts are wrong. Mhm.
Yeah. Actually, yun yung problema, I think, with, and we have a question, and I'll connect to it in a bit. Thank you
Yeah.
to the people who sent the question. The what I've been worrying about is it's just like infinite production. Kasi the business model of a fair number of websites, even though the value of page visits is dropping, is just to create as many website pages as they can with
Mhm.
SEO friendly articles. And now
Yeah.
you can just sort of automate the creation of a bunch of these things. You
Yeah.
have garbage content,
Yeah.
and but because people click into your page, you get a page click, and then
Uh,
you're able to monetize those things. So I feel like one that's going to be a problem is that overload of information.
yeah.
um and so I'll read this question straight from the DMs because I think it connects directly to this. Remember when fake news started becoming more rampant? We started having to teach very young kids and much older adults. Grabe naman maka ano na to. And much grabe
My
maka-judge.
profiling.
No, and much older adults how to spot it. Yes, this is correct, but we had to teach everybody. What they were just more susceptible. That is true. What would a basic understanding of AI look like, such that non-techie people can avoid being fooled by it? May common points ba, or how to spot fake news and AI generated things?
Oh, that's a tough question, especially because the output they generate is very kind of average human, like I said. It's if 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 teachers and like even the software that claims to be able to spot it is having a hard time, most of us are going to have a hard time, to be honest, spotting if something was AI generated. Um, but the flip side is also that just because it's AI generated doesn't mean it's wrong or that it can also it's also right a lot of the time. That's why it's being used, right? Um, but I think the question should be not like spot is it AI generated. It's more like spot if it's fake or true, like what it's saying. You know, like
Uh,
yeah, doing your due diligence talaga. Yun talaga yung
which is
uh,
hard, man.
which is hard.
Which is hard. It's a hard task for everybody. Like, so I love how you got to the root of this, which is it's not whether it's AI generated or not. It's whether it is false, di ba?
Yes. Yeah.
It's whether it's generated with a false intent, because
Yeah.
you could have AI generated stuff that is totally believable and totally valid,
Hmm.
or um I think AI assisted production is fine.
Hmm.
I have no problems with AI assist
Yeah.
on writing,
Yeah.
AI assisted, like, using AI tools to improve the way that we work.
Hmm.
Pero yung bottom line pa rin is what kinds of people use the tool, because AI is merely a tool.
Hmm.
Tama, no? It's still
Yeah.
just a tool. So it's
Yeah.
still
It
like
is.
whatever
Yes.
people decide to use it
Yes.
for, that
Exactly.
becomes the root challenge. Is if they're intentionally using it. So what scares me, I guess you can react to this, especially from where you are in this landscape. What scares me is that, um like Maria Ressa of Raptors always says, lies travel faster than facts, and they have the data to prove it. And that's true, right? They have the data to prove that. What scares me even more is, like, AI can help you produce lies at an
Faster.
exponentially faster rate than we can spread truth.
Hmm.
And so I guess the question here becomes, is there a tool? Is it, this may be a bigger thing than the two
Yeah.
of us know, but is it
Yeah.
legislation? Is it like, what
Ah.
are the things that need to begin to exist so that we can protect ourselves in this way?
Hmm.
Ang hirap ng tanong, no? I
Mahirap yung
didn't know
tanong.
that. I didn't. So to be fair to you, I didn't realize I would be asking this question.
That's all right. Hmm. Let me have a think. So the question is like, yeah, given that, okay, we're of the understanding that it's not, the question isn't is AI bad, right?
Yeah,
It's whether, or it's not a question that is this thing generated by AI. It's more like, is this thing true? But the point that you add is, um, okay, that's the question. But AI undoubtedly allows us to generate content at a much faster rate.
yeah.
So what can we do to I guess safeguard against that? Hmm.
Kasi is it like AI to check AI, which falls brings us into that arms race? Is it
Yeah.
legislate, like that's the problem of a technology like this having, like,
Yeah.
everyone having access to a technology like this, is it's a tool, and every tool is a weapon.
Hmm. Hmm. I think the from the tech aspect, yes, the arms race thing. If you can develop tools that can detect if something is, you know, developed by AI, that would be helpful.
Hmm.
Um, but again, like, yeah, that can generate some false positives, etc. Legislation, I'm not sure. Hmm. I
Kasi
mean, there has been like efforts elsewhere to like kind of control the the development and use of it, right? Or at
yeah,
least make it more responsible.
yeah.
Yeah.
Pero at this point, no, we're kind of stuck.
Yeah.
Kasi, so I've been traveling in the last few months and meeting a lot of journalists from different
Hmm.
geographies, different countries, um, and they're all looking at their upcoming elections as the first elections that will have to contend with an AI generated
Mm.
uh, articles,
All the
pieces.
campaign.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and then the idea that you need drastically less audio
Yeah.
to create, diba, to model someone's voice.
Okay. Okay.
And if you're a politician and you're on TV a lot, it's gonna be easy to model your face
A
and your
fake,
voice and
I
all.
know. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Which is
That's,
probably a question we don't have
no,
the
just yet.
capacity to
Yeah.
answer,
Yeah.
except that we appreciate that this question has been asked.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a hard question to answer, especially given the pace of the technology nowadays. Diba?
Yeah. And honestly, at this point, I feel like fooled by AI, parang fooled by fake news was difficult enough. because
Mm.
what they would do is they would make the website look legitimate,
Yeah.
the story looks legit. Even like itong may mga recent scams, 'di ba? That's why scams get people is because they look legitimate, and AI
Yeah.
will only give more tools to people who have
Mm.
like a bad faith intention.
Yeah. I guess, yeah, being more knowledgeable in what it can produce, what it produces typically looks like. Same way
Right.
as, like, how we became aware of what a typical scam looks like. Using all of the AI stuff, right? Just staying
Oo nga.
aware, I think.
I wonder if so
Mm.
I heard this thing of if you hear if you hear AI generated music all the time,
Mm.
mainis ka na kasi laging ganon. So you'll actually wind up wanting the other thing. So it's a matter of us becoming sensitized to the
Mm.
existence of AI stuff. In the same way that pag nag-click ka ng, di ba, if you search something on Google, you wind up clicking through a link. Tapos it's one of those badly written SEO pieces.
Yeah,
Eventually,
yeah.
hindi mo siya babasahin eh.
Oo. Eventually, alam mo ano lang siya, na churn out na,
Oo.
di ba? Yeah.
Except that people need to be savvy in terms of whether
Yeah.
and ang problema nga dyan if it's children or older adults
Mm. Good
mas
point. So,
mahirap. I
so I
I
guess
I
it's on those who know better to educate
yes.
people, right? So it's like,
So I know of a program in Italy na parang elementary school children are already being taught media literacy and fact checking. So na bata
mm,
pa lang sila,
oh,
marunong na sila, like they're already exposed to the techniques. Um like ano yan, grade 2? Ang ganon, meron na silang awareness
yeah.
because one of the reasons why older adults wind up believing is they're so used to their media diet telling them na kung ano yun
Mm.
nandyan, yun
Yun
yung
yung
totoo.
totoo.
Like,
Yeah,
oo.
yeah.
So, it is not an AI solution.
Yeah. It's a way of absorbing content mindset thing. You know, how do you go about? Yeah,
I
yeah,
wonder
that's right.
if in your experience at Thinking Machines, um, when you're working with clients to build things out, how easily have has the adoption been when you
Mm.
propose an idea? Because if we're talking about the kinds of people who need to understand and adopt this, and maybe if you're working with clients who are a little older, if they adopt this, then that expands to their understanding of the space. So, what is the journey of understanding like when you explain something to them and they finally get it?
Mm. I think actually a lot of the clients who reached out to us were like, maybe some of them were also older, um, older guys who have read about. It helps that the ChatGPT, etc., became very popular in the past year or so. Um, but before that, before the boom of these large language models, there already was kind of interest for different enterprises to invest in AI, because they know, at least abroad, these larger companies are leveraging it in some way to better, for example, predict their customer behavior. So they're using AI and analytics to do that. So they also want to try it. They want to innovate. So actually, a lot of the people who have approached us have that desire to kind of try and innovate something. Usually, it will start as a smaller POC and then grow into a full project. But in in the past year, it's been mostly ano talaga, the AI, like generative AI, large language models, rather
Yeah,
than predictive models.
yeah,
Because of that, the boom in interest now. Um, but I think even now it's like they're still experimental.
yeah.
It was only like late last year wherein ChatGPT really exploded, right? So even now, it's very experimental. People are trying these small POCs, even with us. Like we'll work with them on small projects and see how they can use it. We show them how to use it, and then sometimes they spin off into the larger, like custom enterprise level AI assistant apps.
If I'm entering the game now,
Mm.
what are the things I should do, and what would you discourage me from doing?
Do you mean like the types of efforts you would use for AI projects or different
Yeah,
types?
like so let's say I'm a guy who's read like AI is important. Kailangan
Yeah.
mo to para sa business mo.
Okay.
And I come to you and I go, well, I don't know anything except
Yeah.
blah blah blah. But I'd love for your team to test uh
Hmm.
something for me to see if it makes sense for my business.
Yeah.
And what kind of questions would you ask that person
Hmm.
before you
Yeah.
started building for them?
Yeah. Usually we try to scope to identify a really strong pain point in business case talaga. We're not fixated on okay, the solution has to be AI. Because sometimes it isn't, right? We've talked to people na when we when we had a conversation with them, we realized okay, maybe it's not an AI model that you need. It's more like you need a central data warehouse that consolidates and cleans all your data, serves it to you in the dashboard that you can really easily access. That's not AI, but it's still leveraging your data and doing it properly. So I guess not getting too hung up na an AI solution has to be the solution, but sometimes it also is. Depends really on the application and the problem that they have. Right?
Yeah, so I love that because it is everyone says if you're not using AI you're gonna die, but also you have to figure out what kind it is, and
Yeah.
so it becomes so it still becomes, what does your business do
Mm.
and
What are the pain
where can you
points? Yeah.
improve?
Yeah. If the what is a thing that you want that will really help improve your day to day or your business,
Yeah.
and then that's where we start from.
And is there to the point naman of what to avoid? So if I'm rushing in there, what
Uh,
are the things that I should not do?
well, yeah. To that point, hyper fixating on a solution. No, it has to be AI, and
Right.
then yun pala, you don't have enough data. Your data's not good because a lot of these AI models, right? It's garbage in, garbage out. The model's only
Right.
be going to be as good as the data you provided. The data has to be clean. It has to be representative so that the model you build doesn't have biases. So not
Makes
getting
sense.
hyper fixated on a solution like that is,
Yeah.
I think, the most. Yeah.
So I have a question about this. So we don't have to talk about P Doom and and that stuff because it's sort of fun to think. Not fun. Like, it would not be a fun outcome,
Yeah.
but it's a thing that people kind of like to think about and joke around. P Doom being like the possibility of an AI going rogue
Uh,
and then destroying humanity, But the more immediate concern for me is the way that AI will potentially affect maybe the lower skilled
mm,
workforce. So I think manual labor walang problema, right?
mm,
But it's the lower skilled information workforce that is
mm,
at a very high vulnerability, because
uh,
if you can replace it, like if chatbots were really really smart, right? If we made really really good chatbots, we could probably get rid of a lot of customer service operations.
mm,
And and right now chatbots are kind of frustrating to work with because they don't understand the range of possibility, diba? But
yeah.
if this became a legitimate thing, there's a lot of businesses that could get hit. I can think of virtual assistant challenges. Like there's a lot of information work, information services work that is vulnerable. How are you guys thinking about that? Like as a as an as a as a thought leader in this space, are you considering how industry and essentially work is going to change
Mm.
given these possibilities?
Yeah, that's a very valid concern. Um, and the way we always think about it is that AI and machine learning and these data solutions are not meant to replace a human. They're meant to augment your abilities and make you do your work easier. For example, in the your example of like, for example, customer service agents, right? Rather than replace, rather than totally replacing this agent, you could have an AI assistant that helps them dealing with a tough customer, applying your your company's best practices, being able to help them resolve that customer's problems more quickly than they would on their own, and to resolve it and to actually resolve it rather than just throwing them and giving them a generic non-answer, right? Um, I think people will always appreciate the human touch and like the human judgment at the end. Um, Whenever we build another example, whenever you build like say prediction models, predicting customer segmentation, at the very end, you're not going to rely on this model to just like as an oracle, and then rely on it to kind of send messages to your customers. No, there has to be a person at the end making the decision, having that human touch, that human aspect to decide. Okay, um, this AI model or these analytics help me make a more informed decision. Now I'm going to make this decision. And even the bot, I don't know, I'm speaking from myself maybe, but if you were a boss and then you would rather have like that person's insight backed by data, backed by technology, rather than just totally relying on the technology itself, especially if you're doing something high stakes, right?
I understand that, pero I'm gonna play devil's advocate.
Yeah.
And imagine if I were a bad boss and I
Ah,
asked you to build an AI that allows me to sort of replace some of my staff na mareklamo.
ah, then you are a bad guy. No,
I mean, there's definitely the
yeah,
opportunity, right?
there
There's
is the
definitely
opportunity for that.
certain tasks that can be
Yeah.
uh that we can fully replace people with. I
Mm.
think. But have you never been confronted with that, like building a tool that essentially would replace the work of people?
Not totally. I think all of the solutions we build is really more supercharging whatever work people are doing. Um, Whether it's automating a lot of processes that they find tedious so they can
Uh,
focus on more higher level tasks,
yeah.
or whether it's enabling them to collect more information so that they can make a more informed decision. It's usually things like that.
I so that's the stuff I believe in. I honestly believe in sort of a human and AI mix create
Mm.
something much more
Yeah.
powerful than either is capable of.
Yeah.
However, like my thinking around this is efficiency, and there are certain efficiencies that can be built out if we rely on the technology. I
Yeah.
guess I know, kind of going around in circles with this, but the parang yung bottom line thought kasi with this is if uh if we are able to remove the majority of work for people, does that create then like anong I don't know if, again, these are like big questions. Yung upending the social structure, yung ganyan na, does it fundamentally change the way that, in the same way earlier we were talking about the fundamental change to education, we
Yeah.
change what people are being educated for. This also may fundamentally change the kind of work that we design if we need people to be partnered with AI to accomplish certain things.
Yeah.
Ewan ko, feeling ko like magpapaka-utopian lang ako and I want to believe like this allows
Yeah.
humans to explore like the big mysteries in life or something.
Yeah. But even if you're not being that super idealistic utopian, even in the like corporate sense or in your day-to-day
Mm.
job sense, you can do away now with the mundane tasks that are very repetitive and like are not engaging. You can now preoccupy yourself with, more creative work that requires higher level thinking. So I think it's also on us to, well, it's on the job providers to create that kind of role for people as well, and us to grow into filling that role.
Ang interesting nung challenge kasi earlier, if the question was like bad faith actors are just gonna churn out a bunch of garbage and that's what's
Mm.
going to fill the internet.
Yeah.
And then on the other end of it is if actually we find a way to do this, we may be able to create things that a human could not have made on their own. Like just the kind of data analysis. Um, I'm thinking of the amount of work that an investigative journalist has to do
Mm.
in pouring through a bunch of documents. But
Yeah.
if we drop them into an AI, like into a
A tool.
large
Yeah.
language model to find the trends or to do an analysis,
Mm.
then that 5,000 pages of, say, of accounting documents, you can get the AI to discover something that would not have been possible with one person, two people, three people doing that. So, but then we still need to assign value, I think. Parang kailangan maging mas valuable yung ganong klaseng um, thinking. Eh.
Mm.
We have a comment. I'm not just gotta watching. Thank you. Hello, Manny does triathlon. Right. And then the last on my list of questions, and again, inviting the audience to drop questions and send us anything. And um, is so by the end of last year, tama ba? If my timelines are correct, end of last year, GPT-3 goes up. People are like, "Oh my god, AI is going to change everything."
Mm.
At and earlier than that, parang people were freaking out because Google announced that it had some sentient thing going na
Yeah.
hindi naman pala sentient. And we were at this crossroads of everything's going to change. And now it does feel like it's in the ether. Everyone is adopting AI in some way, shape, or form.
Mm.
Parang every single app that you own has AI in it. I went to a startup pitching thing and then everything had to have an AI aspect. Parang hindi na sila
Ah.
pwedeng wala, ganon.
Yeah.
But um, based on your experience, given that you guys have been working in this space for so long, how immediate are these impacts going to be? And especially, how immediate is it for a Filipino?
Mm. Hmm. Okay. I guess for an individual, like um, the impact can be as immediate as you want. So how often do you use ChatGPT in your daily life? Whether it's like you work in marketing and you help it to you use it to help you write copy faster, getting that first draft out, and then just tweaking that. Um, Whether you use it to analyze customer comments, customer sentiment, make that quicker. Um,
Right.
Whether it's simple like writing emails,
Nga.
uh, which is can take long for some people. So ayun, leveraging its strengths in things like that, where it is already good at, um, the impact can be immediate, even at the individual level. At the more, I guess, enterprise level, the impact is there's a real desire to want to adopt it because of its productivity enhancing qualities. But there's also the so we've had a lot of guys that come to us now with the desire now. Okay, we wanna incorporate AI into our workflow, but we want to build custom apps, etc. But we have the concern about the safety and security,
Right.
and that's a very valid concern because you don't want your internal company data going out uh, and going into those models, right? So that's why I think the thing that's growing a lot now is also the enterprise version of these LLM apps, etc.
Yeah.
So the nice thing about the enterprise version is that you can it adds a layer of security. Basically, you're kind of ensured that whatever you feed it or whatever you upload to it doesn't make it out. It stays with you. Um, so if it's more at the so yeah, going beyond the individual level, the impact at the company level will be like as these companies are investing in enterprise level large language models and AI, more and more of their people are going to be empowered to use it. the nice the nice thing about LLMs in particular is that anyone can use it
Yeah.
because again the way you interact with it is through natural language, whereas before using AI and tech was kind of siloed in whatever the tech department or the data department.
Yeah.
Now you see it being used across marketing, operations, sales, etc.
I love that sense of the immediacy of this, and this sense that you can wall it off. Like I know GPT-4, you can make separate versions of it for yourself with its own data set. So and then you can have different
Mm.
versions of yourself to
Yeah,
brainstorm
yeah,
with.
Yeah, yeah. You can create these agents, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
you can
yeah.
save them. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So that's sort of the easy bit of it. But I guess my question wants to drive to this sense now. There's a narrative of this is like the printing press, this is electricity, this changes
Mm.
everything. And I'm just curious, what is the everything that it's supposed to change? Like what does the world look like post AI transformation? Is it is it's I think the transformations we've seen in our lifetimes have been clear: the computer, the smartphone, social media, and with increasing succession, no? Parang from the printing press to the into industrial age and like atomic energy, parang the breakthroughs are becoming smaller in gap.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
what is the promised outcome of AI changes everything at you know I feel like I'm throwing big questions, but I hope
Yeah,
you
this
don't
is like
mind.
this is kind of edging into a bit sci-fi if you will
Sci-fi,
indulge in
yeah.
sci-fi, right?
Yeah.
Well, I
Yeah,
love
pero nga
sci-fi.
kasi they're like
Yeah,
it changes everything. Like
yeah.
this is the biggest thing ever. Yeah, but what does it look like when it has changed everything?
Well,
Biohack na ba tayo? Ganon.
the I guess the idealist, but at the same time can feasible naman, realistic rin naman, is that yun nga, most of the jobs will be towards higher level tasks. If everybody has an assistant that they can rely on, then they can focus on other things, right? Because especially when everybody gets better at being able to utilize AI, you can have literally everyone can have an AI assistant, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so that's one. That's like an immediate thing that could happen. I mean, people are already trying to do that. Like what you mentioned, like the GPT-4, you
Yeah.
can you can build even multiple assistants for yourself uh, with different sets of knowledge.
How I want AI to solve like the climate crisis,
Big
Diba?
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Ah,
No, I mean that's the stuff I want to believe in is
yeah.
AI solves the climate crisis. I want to think that AI comes up for the cure for cancer. Like
Yeah.
human plus AI equals the cure for cancer just because it empowers cancer researchers to do way more.
Hmm.
Ganyan. Parang siya magic wand.
Yeah. It's like a supercharged scientist or researcher as well. You mentioned that reminded me of something now. Just a few days ago, yata, um, a model was used to help with drug discovery. So they were
Okay.
able in pharmaceuticals, so like being able to uh, work that would have taken years and lots of people to do. The AI model was able to do in a much shorter time effort because it could look through patterns really quickly and efficiently, and then it recommends these to the actual scientists, and then they can prioritize and things like that. So it can definitely help in with things like
Yeah.
that too, discovery.
So I think maybe in yung ano no like this is a silly thing, but I think it's like writing. Like this basic idea that because we could write things down, we could pass information down and we could do all of these things. So it goes back to what are writing systems and paper and stuff. It's knowledge acquisition and knowledge passing.
Hmm.
And then if AI becomes taking all of that knowledge and giving us the processing power that we would never have in our brains, and then providing that so that we can solve these new problems, right?
Yeah.
That's our big sci-fi stuff. I'm gonna
Yeah.
pull it back because there's 10 minutes left, and
Okay.
I'm going
Yeah.
to go with to something real. So
Real. Yeah.
Anna from our head of comms at Puma Podcast asks, what is the coolest, most interesting thing that you've seen that's been done with AI?
Hmm. What I find cool might not be cool too. Does it have to have been thinking machines or just in general?
In putting in general, putting
Pwedeng
like
thinking
something
machines.
silly.
Mm, I think one of the coolest ones are the one I mentioned earlier, like the drug discovery thing. I think that's
Yeah.
really good. using AI to empower basic research that ultimately has positive impacts on society, on humanity, is pretty cool. I think
Yeah.
the ability to crunch a lot of this data that, like you said, no human can fairly account for all of those data points at once in our head. So using these tools to empower us to make decisions better, to do discovery better is pretty cool. Um, because the work we do in thinking machines that I enjoy is a lot of AI for uh, prediction and coaching and things like that. So these LLMs can serve as a coach, like somebody that you brainstorm with,
Right.
and they can take on very specific personalities. So
Okay.
if you need if you're like say a guy who just hopped onto you just joined this company as a customer support agent, and not everybody, not all of your boss won't have time to like coach all of you, right? So having an AI
Yeah.
kind of adopt those best practices and the personality of a coach that can help you upskill really quickly. I think that's pretty cool, to be honest.
That's cool. Like, so institutional learning, which often relies on people passing it down within the
Yeah.
organization, it can
Yep.
be a built out database that someone who comes in is like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's cool.
That, and I guess internal knowledge things as well. So there's a lot of institutional knowledge within your company
Yeah.
tucked away in all of these documents. And then if you're some new guy, oh, I need to develop I need to start this project doing this effort. How have we done it before? Normally,
Right.
you have to find the people who, some of them might even be gone. They left the company now. But being able to search that quickly, just ask an AI system, be like, oh, what have we done before that
Yeah.
related to this? It's very helpful.
Yeah. And as a chatbot, it would be like, what kind of have we ever worked on a project with this kind of
Yeah,
client before?
yeah.
Diba? And then it can pull up all of the
You can
clients that
put,
are
yeah,
within that space and then say when and all that.
yeah,
Yeah.
and answer questions like it has memory of your conversation. It has context. So
Mm.
as you're asking it, oh, that thing we talked about earlier. Can you talk more about that? And then it will expound on that. So it's much more, yeah,
There was one of the things that we got to talk about when we were developing a journalism product. Um, one of our coaches was saying, "Oh, what if there's a news article, and whenever you write the news article, you always have to give the context of where this happened and who the people involved are and stuff. But when it's an ongoing article, like and when it's an ongoing news story across weeks, and you're checking in on it, you always have to read those parts again. But if
yeah,
the AI news that you're receiving
yeah,
already knows that you read the past articles, then it can
yeah,
skip and it just gives you the new information, that kind of thing, no?
yeah,
So
yeah, exactly.
these are small practical things. Um, Closing out with a question from Lisa. What do you think the next year will look like for businesses who are using AI or generative AI?
Hmm. I think a lot of first um, enablement. Um, you'll see a lot of efforts to upskill a lot of their employees in how to use AI properly, the best practices, the limitations as well, how to use it safely. Um, you'll also see, and going back to the enterprise thing again, because security is definitely going to be a concern for businesses who want to use AI. So being able to work with AI in a secure environment to the enterprise versions of things like GPT is going to be very important, um, especially if they want to upload their internal knowledge onto it. Um, yeah, actually, just a few months ago, we had a workshop. We have this so-called Fast Start program, which we did with JG Summit. Um, so that one, they wanted to enable people across the org, regardless of your role, whether you're tech or not, or you're, non-tech. Um, this program allowed them to all of the participants to build their own AI assistants. We show you the ins and outs of LLMs, its best practices, um, and then we provide you with a tool which we call LLM labs. But basically, it's a safe environment wherein you can create your own AI assistants, as many as you want, basically. And then you can tweak, you can iterate, you can experiment, and you can safely upload internal documents, knowledge. So you get these guys within that day. They get hands on with a they get hands on experience right away, developing their own AI assistants and then using it um, in their workflow. So you get big groups like this, like JG Summit, who are totally interested in investing in something like this. That LLM fast start that I just talked about, it's more like if you want to taste, because again, like you can quickly iterate and you can quickly but it's a bit smaller scale. But we also have talked to other guys that have built more large scale, cost full scale, enterprise apps that connects to even more of their data. That's usually when they have a strong idea of what kind of AI solution or they want. Um, yeah,
Yeah, and in terms of security, that's probably best for enterprises is to build something in house or to take tools and keep them in house rather than using ChatGPT or other LLMs
yeah,
that
for sure.
are using that will use this to learn so that they can keep
Yeah.
growing. And yeah,
To be fair, I mean,
last question. Yeah,
yeah.
go ahead. Yeah, yeah,
Sorry, last. Just to be fair, OpenAI does offer their enterprise version. So
that's true.
yeah, so you could use that as well. I mean, they have the Chat GPT and then they have the enterprise one. But anyway, so yeah.
All right, and our last question for today is what are your hopes for AI in 2024?
Oh, hmm. I hope it can reduce hallucinations. I think that's an open area of research, and in terms of the advancement of the AI models themselves, that's something that AI researchers are always working on, trying to reduce hallucinations, trying to increase their capacity for processing more information. Even now, see, GPT-4 is able to take in images. You can show it an image of something and say, "What is this? Can you interpret this?" You can give it some image of like a financial statement or whatever. But if that's personal, don't do that. But bad example. But anyway, it can. The point is, it can accept different types of uh, information of data, which is important because right before GPT-4 it was mostly text. But in order to you would increase the capacity of these AI assistants by being able to upload images and other types of data as well, eventually video, things like that. Um, and what else are my hopes? That it gets better at math. I think that's one of the common pitfalls, like performing complex math. That's something that's not in the current capacity of uh, these AI assistants.
Interesting. So it's just more complex. Its ability to handle complexity and more differing inputs.
Yeah, like true logic, um, which math is in, being able to do complex math is an indicator of. It's not quite there yet, but I think cutting edge AI researchers are trying to get it there, which is another topic.
Ako, my hope is that a lot of this remains affordable to people. Um,
Yeah,
I think enterprise is an investment, but I think on a personal level, our ability to access is I think access to AI is going to be the new privilege.
mm,
Like if you are at a very young age able to access AI tools and able to manipulate them, that's going to be the game changer for your ability to function in the future. And so I think what we'll probably see is the children right now who are maybe 12, 13 years old
yeah,
coming and when you see if these kids have these tools right now at 12, 13, 14, in 5 or 6 years they will have mastered some of this, and
yeah,
then in 10 years they will be entering the workforce, and that's where you're going to see a divergence of the people who had the privilege of training
that's
with these
fair.
tools and those who did not. And
Yeah.
then and that's going to sort of have a social change. So my hope is that we preempt that and we find ways to keep these tools accessible to the majority of people so that there's still some cohesion. Ang weird, no? Sobrang sci-fi pala naman pinag-iisip ko, and I apologize.
Oh
I
no,
apologize
it's
for that.
it's very valid. Ano, I mean, what you said, that's why you have all of these independent organizations that are also doing AI research and making sure that those models are open source, so that you don't have to you don't have to pay to gain access to these things.
Yeah, because if you think about just again, as we round this out, like if we think about where we are right now in the Filipino and the Filipinos' access to the library and to the to basic education and the ability to finish school and all of that stuff. And then you add on this new technological layer,
Mm.
ibang level
It's
din.
another ano naman. Oh,
Yeah. So I think us who are thinking about it, obviously we're thinking about it on how do we use it on the day to day, how do we use it for our
yeah,
business, but then we have to think about it at that
yeah.
larger equity level. Yeah, man. So thanks for like bearing with my silly questions and my crazy sci-fi things. Wanted to
No, it
ask
was great.
if you have anything that you wanna end with final thoughts before we close this out.
Yeah, I think maybe, I guess, the optimist in me is that it really will be a useful thing, AI, the technology, and it's on us to use it responsibly. Um, and it's a kind of tech that's here to stay. Um, it does really add value. So I think learning how to do it, learning how to use it responsibly would benefit the, everyone, even in your day to day.
Definitely.
Yeah,
All right, man. Thank you. So thank you, Kevin, for joining us. This was really fun. Obviously, I
yeah,
had fun. I
yeah.
had
I had
fun
fun
thinking
too.
about all this stuff. Uh,
Yeah,
and thanks to our listeners and to whoever else is going to listen to this at a later point. We'll keep thinking about this and other things. Check out the pod. Check out all of the other things. You can
yeah,
search for Puma Podcast. If you want to know more about thinking machines, where do they find
yeah.
you guys?
You can find us on our website, thinkingmachine.es, or you can just Google us as well. Um, Feel free to reach out. Yeah,
All right. Awesome. Okay. Thanks, everyone. And we will go off now.
yeah. Thanks.